Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. The recent group of videos I shared about Robert E. Lee prompted a number of comments, including one from subscriber Tom Kelly, who suggested looking at interviews Lee gave to a reporter in 1870. These interviews are, in fact, memoranda of conversations Lee had with a man named William Allan. His life dates are 1837 to 1889. Allen was an educator who taught mathematics at Washington College, later renamed Washington and Lee University, of course, for Lee, who was president during the time from the end of the war until his death in October 1870. Lee, in fact, invited Allen to be one of the professors at Washington College. Allen had the creds. He was a University of Virginia graduate. He also served during the war as a staff officer to Stonewall Jackson and Jubal Early. Allen wrote and collaborated on or authored books and papers about the late war, and he embraced the lost cause narrative, a subject he spoke about often. In 1868 and 1870, Allen made notes of a series of conversations with General Lee on various subjects related to the war. Allen's notes on Lee's comments about Gettysburg caught my attention, especially though all of the notes are quite interesting. And the Gettysburg parts compose two sections of two memorandums, one composed in 1868 and another in 1870. I want to share them with you. Both, what I'm about to read you, are transcriptions taken from the Encyclopedia of Virginia, which I've used in the past, and I have found it to be a reliable source. Now, I'm going to start with the last one first. This is the one dated February 19th, 1870, about 8 months before Lee died. Allen notes that Lee, quote, spoke feelingly of Gettysburg, said much was said about risky movements. Everything was risky in our war. He knew oftentimes that he was playing a very bold game, but it was the only possible one. Said he had urged the governor before going to Pennsylvania in 1863 to bring Beauregard to Manassas with all the troops that could be got and threaten Washington in that quarter. Mr. Davis promised to do so, but it was never done. Probably the difficulties were too great. Did not expect much more than a demonstration, but Beauregard, with a few troops there, would have produced a great diversion and a great moral effect. Mr. Davis did not like the movement northward and said he was afraid Lee could not get away, that the enemy would attack. Lee said he had no fears about getting off. The only trouble was about Richmond, but that he thought by concealing his movements and managing well, he could get so far north as to threaten Washington before they could check him. And this once done, he knew there was no need of further fears about their moving on Richmond. Succeeding in this, but failed at Gettysburg from a variety of causes. One, Stuart failed to give him information, and this deceived him into a general battle. Then he never could get a simultaneous attack on the enemy's position. Often thinks that if Jackson had been there, he would have succeeded. So that's the first memorandum from Allen. The second memorandum referencing Gettysburg dates to April 15th, 1868, and this one provides a bit more information. Allen writes, quote, as for Gettysburg, first, he did not intend to give general battle in Pennsylvania if he could avoid it. The South was too weak to carry on a war of invasion, and his offensive movements against the North were never intended except as parts of a defensive system. He did not know the Federal Army was at Gettysburg, could not believe it, as Stuart had been specially ordered to cover Lee's movement and keep him informed of the position of the enemy, and he, Stuart had sent no word. He found himself engaged with the Federal Army, therefore, unexpectedly, and had to fight. This being determined on, victory would have been won if he could have gotten one decided simultaneous attack on the whole line. This he tried his utmost to effect for 3 days and failed. Ewell could not get to act in decision. Rhodes, Early, Johnson attacked and were hurt in detail. Then Longstreet and Hill and etc. could not be gotten to act in concert. Thus, the Federal troops were enabled to be opposed to each other of our corps or even divisions in succession. As it was, however, he inflicted more damage than he received and broke up the Federal summer campaign. When he retired, he would have crossed the Potomac at once if he could have done so. It was so swollen as to delay him, and hence his works and etc. at Hagerstown. He would not have been sorry if Meade had attacked him there, but he did not stop specially to invite it, but because the river was high. Meade's failure to attack showed how he had suffered. In regard to going into Pennsylvania at all, he thought it was far better than remaining at Fredericksburg. He had twice been attacked there and succeeded, but he did not wish again to remain there to risk another attempt. The position was too easily flanked, and the plan Grant afterwards pursued, that's the spring campaign of 1864, might have been tried at any time. He thought it best to improve the advantage gained by going north, thus drawing away the enemy from the Rapidan, exciting their fears for Washington, and, by watching his opportunities, baffle and break up their plans. To have lain at Fredericksburg would have allowed them time to collect force and initiate a new plan on the campaign. In going into Pennsylvania, he diverted their attention, kept them thinking of Washington instead of Richmond, and got ample supplies for his army. He did not want to fight unless he could get an opportunity to hit them in detail. He expected, however, probably to find it necessary to give battle before his return in the fall, as it would have been difficult to retreat without it. He had no idea of permanent occupation of Pennsylvania. He was troubled as to his forage, so weak was the force he could spare for this purpose. He expected, therefore, to move about, to maneuver and alarm the enemy, threaten their cities, hit any blows he might be able to do without risking a general battle, and then, towards fall, return near his base. Stuart's failure to carry out his instructions forced the Battle of Gettysburg, and the imperfect, halting way in which his corps commanders, especially Ewell, fought battle, gave victory, which, as he says, trembled for 3 days in the balance, finally to the foe. Lee says that one day, I think the second, he consulted Ewell and told him that if he could not carry his part of the line, he would move the Second Corps to the right of Longstreet and threaten their communications with Baltimore, but that Edward Johnson and Ewell said the line then held could be carried. Johnson, Rhodes, Early, however, attacked in succession and were not able to hold any advantage. General Lee talked feelingly of the criticism to which he had been subjected, said critics talked much of that they knew little about, and said he had fought honestly and earnestly to the best of his knowledge and ability for the cause, and had never allowed his own advantage or reputation to come into consideration. He cared nothing for these. Success was the great matter. Instanced General Joe Johnston's sensitiveness on the score and how wrong and unwise it was. He referred to a reported conversation of Longstreet in which the latter stated that General Lee was under a promise to the lieutenant generals not to fight a battle in Pennsylvania. The general said he did not believe this was ever said by Longstreet, that the idea was absurd. He had never made any such promise and had never thought of doing any such thing. End quote. So there you have the memoranda about General Lee's conversations. Something that really stood out with me is actually two things. One of them is how closely today's narrative about the Battle of Gettysburg is very similar to what Lee laid out in this memorandum. Also of interest is the comment that Lee made about remaining in Pennsylvania until the fall. That would have been September, October. And it really is interesting to imagine if Lee had wound up staying in Pennsylvania, threatening Washington, Baltimore, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and other cities, what that would have been like. So, anyway, there you have it, the story of Lee's memoranda. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.